Good morning, everybody. So we are going to continue on the theme of this whole Gyan course, and the theme is inflammation. That what we are talking about all this last few days is inflammation is playing a very, very, very important role in wide variety of chronic diseases. And if you can control inflammation, you can control the disease. So the question is how to control inflammation. And that's what we are talking about. And we are also discussing various agents that are provided by Mother Nature that can control inflammation. And we discussed several of them, and we are going to continue on the same theme. And the theme that we introduced last time was about turmeric, about haldi, or about curcumin. So last time where we left off is curcumin is coming from turmeric and playing a very important role in controlling inflammation. So before I begin, does anybody has any question? Anything that is not clear so far? Any question along those lines? Anything that is technical, that may be unclear. So looks like that everybody understood whatever I have to say so far. So having said that, so let us move on. So I think that yesterday I alluded a little bit that about curcumin, one of the first paper ever to be published, that it is antibacterial agent. And it was published in Nature, which is the most highly cited, most prestigious journal way back then. So this is not advancing. Okay, so it is not only just antibacterial agent, it is also anti-termite. And here, as you can see from the title of this paper, that toxicity of turmeric extract to the termite. And this is a species of turmeric, and this is a paper published not too long ago, August 2015. Just to prove the point that turmeric or curcumin also works against termites. And as I mentioned yesterday, that people in the south use it all the time to get rid of all the termites. So that is another dimension. And it is also very potent anti-inflammatory agent. And again, the first paper ever to be published that you can see was 1982, that to indicate that turmeric or curcumin is a anti-inflammatory agent. And this was by Mukhopadhyay et al. And they compared it with hydrocortisone and phenylbutazone that are known to be anti-inflammatory agents. And they found that here, that as indicated by different colors, that turmeric was as potent as phenylbutazone or hydrocortisone as anti-inflammatory agent. So this was the first indication ever. Okay. And then there is an institute in Kerala, where Dr. Kuttan was the first one to show that curcumin is anti-cancer agent. I don't know whether I have the slide about that or not, but that was also around the same time in 1982 that paper was published to indicate that it can kill number of different type of cancers. So that kind of goes on to show you that it is antibacterial, it is anti-termite, it is anti-inflammatory, it is anti-cancer. So, and it is antiviral, okay. So turmeric is antiviral, clearance of cervical human papilloma virus, okay, that is a lead to cervical cancer. And cervical cancer is very, very, very big in India. It is the #1 cancer in the Indian woman, okay, and that is caused by this virus called papilloma virus, okay. And apparently curcumin works even there also, that clearance of cervical human papilloma virus infection by topical application. You don't even have to take it, swallow it, but you can apply it topically, okay. And curcumin polyherbal cream, phase 2 randomized clinical trial. So here have been tested even in the clinic. And this is published by B.C. Das, is the senior author, who happened to be my colleague from Banaras Hindu University. And then G.P. Talwar, most of you may know who is G.P. Talwar from All India Institute of Medical Sciences. And Alok Bharati, who is another student of mine and now is a professor in Delhi University. So all these people have come together and published this paper about curcumin or turmeric being antiviral agent. So mind you, it is antiviral agent not just only for papilloma virus, but also even HIV. And HIV, as you know, is the one that leads to AIDS. And AIDS is another disease which is very, very common in at least in America, and I'm sure there are a lot of patients here in India as well. And again, curcumin or turmeric will kill it. So this is just some of the examples to indicate that turmeric or curcumin is also antiviral agent. Okay. So, and then this is the first paper that we published to indicate that curcumin is also anti-inflammatory, and it is anti-inflammatory through the suppression of NF-kappa B. As I mentioned earlier, that nuclear factor kappa B is the biggest mediator of inflammation in our body and controls over 500 different genes. And so even this transcription factor is completely blocked by curcumin. And as you can see that here is a TNF which is activating NF-kappa B, and as you add different amounts of curcumin, you can completely down-modulate NF-kappa B expression. So when you down-modulate the NF-kappa B, you down-modulate almost all those 500 genes that are regulated by it. So it is this kind of the proof of the concept to show you that curcumin is working through the same mechanism as some of the other agents that I showed you. So if it does that, then what happens downstream? And again, we have examined that. So we published another paper. And as you can again tell from the title of it, curcumin downregulates the expression of cell proliferation genes, downregulates the expression of anti-apoptotic genes, and genes that are involved in metastasis of the tumor, and through the suppression of NF-kappa B and AKT. And again, this is several authors here that as indicated. And so here you see this XIAP, and that is induced. XIAP is the anti-apoptotic protein, and it is regulated by NF-kappa B. And so here is TNF activating NF-kappa B and inducing this XIAP, and if you add curcumin, you completely down-modulate XIAP. It is anti-apoptotic protein, as I mentioned. And then here you see then IAP1, IAP2, BCL2, BCLXL, and here is a BFL1, and here is a TRAP1, and here is a C-flip. These are all anti-apoptotic protein. They suppress the apoptosis of the different tumor cells. So therefore, a tumor cell can grow, and curcumin will down-modulate the expression of all those proteins. And then some of the inflammatory proteins such as COX-2, cyclooxygenase 2, which leads to prostaglandin synthesis, that is also regulated by NF-kappa B. And here is a TNF that is inducing it, and here is you add curcumin, you can completely down-modulate. So one of the way curcumin controls the inflammation is through the inhibition of COX-2. And there are drugs that have been approved by the FDA that are inhibitor of COX-2. And curcumin will do exactly that. And then cyclin D1 is a protein that is involved in the proliferation of tumor. So the cells proliferate as in response to this protein cyclin D1. So curcumin, and that is also regulated by NF-kappa B. And here you can see the TNF is inducing this protein, and if you add curcumin, you can completely inhibit it. So therefore, cells will not proliferate. So it is acting as an anti-cancer agent. So a lot of drug companies, they are looking for inhibitors of all this, and here we already have a curcumin that can do that. And then there is an oncogene called c-MYC, and this is what causes involved in different cancers, and again that is regulated by NF-kappa B, and the TNF is inducing it, and curcumin will completely inhibit it. Then there are proteins that are involved in metastasis of the tumor, and those are MMP9, ICAM1, and VEGF, and they are all regulated by NF-kappa B, and the TNF induces it, and curcumin completely inhibits. So this is for the first time that we provided the mechanism that how curcumin acts as an anti-cancer agent. What are the various proteins that are linked with cancer, and how curcumin modulates all of that. So that is just to give you a little bit more detail along those lines. Anything that is not clear so far? I think it is very, very, very important that people ask questions, and if they ask questions, that gives them more idea or understanding that what is really going on. Any question? Anything that's not clear? So if you ask question, then you can even take it home and do something with it. No questions? Clear? Okay, so then let's move on. So now the question is that what kind of cancers that are affected by curcumin? And here I made a list of the cancers, and we have written a review called Curcumin and Cancer, an age-old disease with the age-old solution. And here you can see that all the cancers that have been shown to be affected. So far, I do not know of any cancer which is not affected by curcumin. Just imagine. Does not matter what cancer it is. So here you can see gastrointestinal cancers. Here you can see genitourinary cancers. You can see brain tumor. You can see breast cancer. You can see gynecological cancers. You can see thoracic head and neck cancer, melanoma, bone cancer, and all hematological cancers. All these cancers are inhibited. What more do we want? I do not know of any chemotherapy or any drug that can do that. Okay? And I do not know of any drug that has no side effects and yet inhibit all these cancers. And I do not know of any drug which is as inexpensive as curcumin. So you name it. And then because we have done already this review, and you can find even the references that, okay, show me about brain tumor, where is the evidence? Here are all the references. You can look it up. So this is absolutely mind-boggling. And when people see it, they get very, 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 very surprised. So I think that you can potentially make use of it. Questions? Any question? So question is how it is doing whatever it does. And here I have outlined all the different pathways that are blocked by curcumin. So it is not just NF-kappa B alone, and here are multiple other pathways. Here, for example, COX-2, mTOR, IL-8, NRF2, MCP1, INAS, IL-1, HMG-CoA, and STAT3, 5 logs, PI3 kinase, IL-6, CRP, MMP9, Wnt pathway, and TNF. That goes on to show you that it is not just single. It's not that simple. And it is doing its job by hitting multiple pathways. And again, I do not know any drug made by man which can do that. And that is where the Mother Nature comes in, that does things that we have no clue whatsoever. And that's why, now curcumin, turmeric, is anywhere and everywhere. Even Starbucks is selling turmeric latte. Okay? And it started from right here in India. So there are multiple pathways, multiple mechanisms. Okay? So if that is not enough, here are the various proteins. Normally, you might have heard of what we call targeted therapies. That where people pick one target and they design an inhibitor of that target and use it as a drug. However, curcumin, on the other hand, is not just single target. It just does not physically bind to single protein. And these are all the proteins curcumin is known to bind in our body. Just imagine. So when people say curcumin is not bioavailable, the reason it is not bioavailable because all this protein will soak curcumin. It is gone. It is taken up. You never see sitting around free. Here are 20 people sitting in the room, and if somebody comes in, all 20 people grab, the guy is not available. That's why you never see it free. If it is free, that means nobody knows who he is. That's the only reason he is available. Even something like albumin, and no protein in our body is more than albumin. Our body is full of albumin. And even albumin binds to curcumin. There are 4 different binding sites to albumin. And it grabs it, and that's it. Curcumin is gone. So in other words, there are too many lovers of curcumin in our body. Therefore, it is not freely available. And it is released as needed. So there is a enzyme called GSK3 beta. And that enzyme is, here is a GSK3 beta. Okay. And this is the enzyme that to which lithium binds to. And lithium is used for depression. And curcumin goes and binds to the same enzyme. And it's in the brain and inhibits it. Therefore, it acts as an antidepressant. So I think that you need to know all these various mechanisms. So this is a docking studies. And here I provided all the references. If anybody want to check the literature. So it is very, 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 very critical. Okay. So more you find out, so here is albumin, BSA, that curcumin is binding to. Okay. So as I said, the list is very, very long. So that's why it has multiple effects. Not just cancer alone. Okay. So TNF, again we are back on TNF, and as I already mentioned, TNF is very, very important in our body. It is very much needed. Without TNF, you do not have an immune system. So TNF is a very important part of the immune system. However, same TNF, when it gets out of control, it can cause havoc. So therefore, there are a lot of companies trying to make TNF blockers. Lot of companies. And I already mentioned that it has a market over $50 billion. Now there are companies such as Cipla here in India, they are also getting into TNF blockers. But virtually all the blockers that are available, those are antibodies. So therefore, they are not as effective as they need to be. So, and then they have a lot of side effects. So when I say inflammatory issue, that means a lot of them have have side effects. So what are these blockers are approved for? So this is approved by the FDA, Food and Drug Administration in America. Okay. And that is approved for Crohn's disease, which is inflammation in the intestine. They are approved for rheumatoid arthritis. They are approved for psoriasis. They are approved for ankylosing spondylitis. They are approved for ulcerative colitis. They are approved for juvenile idiopathic arthritis. So these are all the diseases TNF blocker have been approved. And as I said, you know, here it says $20 billion. This market has gone much, much, much beyond that. And I'm giving you 2016 or 17 number where it is now close to $50 billion. Okay. And these are what they are approved for, and that again you can look it up. So what are these blockers called? So here you have a infliximab, which is a monoclonal antibody to TNF, and it is approved for rheumatoid arthritis, for psoriasis, for ALS, ulcerative colitis, and Crohn's disease. Here is etanercept, and this is again a receptor that they are using it as to chelate TNF, to remove TNF, and again these are the various diseases it is moved for. And here is adulimab, which is again monoclonal antibodies, again same kind of diseases what it is approved for. Here is a certolizumab, and this is again different people making different antibodies and saying my antibody is better than yours. So then they give different names to it. So this is again different name, and again this is approved for. Here is a golimumab, that's another monoclonal antibody, and this is again what it is approved for. So you can imagine, okay? So I think that this is a golden opportunity. If any of you want to cash in over here, can do so. Question? Any question? Anything that's not clear?
Sir,
Yeah.
you have shown the previous slide of talking. So
I'm sorry?
on the bioavailability of the curcumin.
Yeah.
Like there are some papers that say that there is a problem with curcumin because of its low bioavailability. So what is your comment on this?
Yeah. So that's a very, very important question. And the question is low bioavailability. So low bioavailability means that you are looking for a free curcumin in the body. And if you don't find it, you think it is not bioavailable. But if you have a 200 protein that I showed you, that to which it binds to, it will always be low, no matter how much you give it. You understand? So the point that you really want to know is not the bioavailability, but the bioresponse. Meaning, say you want to remove the pain, say you want to remove TNF, say whatever the end response you want. How much dose you need to do that? Not how much free is. So the freeness of the curcumin does not tell you the biological effect. All it tells you that how much it is sitting there doing nothing. You understand what I'm saying? So when people talk about bioavailability, they are looking for free curcumin, which has nothing to do with bioresponse. Am I clear? So there are hundreds of papers published on it, and I'm going to discuss some of those. And all they are looking for free curcumin. Okay, which means that it had nothing to do, it is sitting there doing nothing. On the other hand, what you want, that if you say down modulate TNF or down modulate NF-kappa B or cure cancer or cure diabetes, question is how much do you need? So that is called bioresponse, not a bioavailability. Okay? So here I'm going to show you the data that as little as 100 milligram. Even aspirin is like 250 or 500 milligram. So as little as 100 milligram, it can do the job what you want to do. So if bioavailability was an issue, it will not do it. So bioavailability word has been misused, let's put it this way, by anybody and everybody. So much so, we wrote a paper, and paper just came out 2 months ago. Is curcumin bioavailability a problem? Lessons to be learned from clinical trials. And I'm going to share some of that with you. Clinical trial, not just rat and mice. Because ultimately the goal in life is to develop something for humans, not for rat and mice. So I'm going to show you the clinical trials in humans. Clear? Any other question? Please ask. More you ask, this curiosity, the more you sort out, the better it is for you.
So is curcumin, is it available in the body at all phases of life in the same amount? Is it available?
I'm sorry?
There are two questions. Is curcumin content available in the body?
Right.
Is it available?
Yes. So again, you have to give a definition of availability. Is the availability is defined by looking at free curcumin, or availability is defined by looking at the biological effect of it? Am I clear? Yeah.
Free curcumin.
Free curcumin is not the indicator of bioavailability. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Free curcumin only it means that it is sitting there doing nothing. So we are looking at the bioresponse. Say that you are giving a curcumin to cure the disease XYZ. Okay. How much curcumin do I need to do that? That's called bioresponse as compared to bioavailability. So please be very clear on that what I'm talking about. So with most of the drugs known to man, people look at the bioavailability, which means how much free it is sitting in the body, not how good it is doing, how much free it is sitting in the body. And that's what normally most people do. And those drugs, they have nothing to bind to. And here I showed you that almost 200 different proteins curcumin is binding to, even albumin. Our body is full of albumin. And not very many proteins bind to albumin. Here curcumin goes bind to albumin and it sends it wherever it need to go. Remember, I also mentioned you the whole body imaging, that curcumin is fluorescent. So you can use the whole body imaging to see where it is ending up just by looking at the fluorescence. And if you remember, I also mentioned you the MIT group, they showed that it ends up in the brain very quickly. So you can see it even over there, just by looking at the fluorescence. Okay. So bioavailability here is defined by bioresponse, not by how much free it is sitting. Okay. And remember, I told you the TNF is the very potent pro-inflammatory agent. And remember, I told you TNF blocker is a big market out there. And I'm going to show you how much curcumin you need to block TNF in humans. In humans. If bioavailability was an issue, it would not work, but it is working.
And the titer required to block the TNF.
I'm sorry?
The titer of curcumin that is required to block the TNF will be like equal in the all the whether it's young or old human.
Young or old woman?
Yes. The titer required for curcumin to block the TNF will it be equal amount for irrespective of age of the
The concentration.
Concentration
of
is-
the curcumin. Use the dosage for the young and for an adult. Is it same or is it different?
I cannot answer you that question. Why? Because I do not know if anybody has compared young versus old side by side. Side by side. So to answer your question, somebody has to set up the study to just answer that question. You understand? So therefore, I'm going to show you lot of clinical trials, but in those clinical trials, nobody asked that question what you are asking. So my intuition would be there should not be a difference, but again, I cannot say anything because there is no data to say one way or the other. Whether it is young or old, so they should be the same way, but there's no evidence. Okay? Any other question? So please feel free to ask. More you ask, the merrier.
This, we are discussing at the part of life where we are seeing the response of curcumin on various aspects, various proteins for various conditions at certain part of age. What if you go to adulthood, adolescent phase, where generally conditions are not visible at that part of life? And
Conditions are not what?
are not visible at early phase of life.
Yeah, yeah.
Fine, where the conditions are not visible. But is it right to say curcumin is required for them for what purpose?
Okay, that's a very good question again. So the question is, you know, when the disease is manifested, you know that you have the disease. But when the disease is not manifested, you don't know what you are going through and do you need a curcumin. And so there are two parts of the equation. One is called prevention, second is called treatment. And the difference between the two is that for prevention, you don't know whether you have the disease, you don't know whether you have the cancer or any other diabetes or anything. Whereas when you have the disease, you know what you have the cancer, you know you have the diabetes, you know what you have. So there's both prevention and treatment. Treatment is after you know it, whereas prevention before you know it. Okay? So, but there's no difference between the two. Why? Because chronic diseases, meaning it takes long time to develop. Usually 10 years, 20 years, 30 years to develop. And then all of a sudden, you have some issue and you go to a doctor and doctor says, oh, you have a diabetes. That means it did not happen just yesterday. It was there 10 years ago, simply you did not know it. Same thing with cancer, same thing with most chronic diseases, same thing with cardiovascular diseases. So it turned out that most chronic diseases, and same thing by the way, Parkinson, Alzheimer, obesity, it turned out that most of these diseases, they start at around the age of 20. But its symptoms show up not until 40 to 50. So there's a 20 to 30 years of incubation time. But by the time the symptoms show up, it is already too late. You are looking at the disease right in front of your eyes. So invariably, prevention is much easier than the treatment. When you have the symptoms, you need to be now very aggressive. But if you are doing it for prevention, you don't need to be as aggressive. So prevention is the best way to go after any of the chronic diseases as compared to the symptoms, as compared to the treatment. So that's why I recommend people that change your lifestyle as early as you can. So quicker you change your lifestyle, lesser you have to wait for any of those diseases to show up. And that starts at the age of 20. So then you don't need to worry about it. Okay? So I think that, and things like curcumin, turmeric, or any of the spices that I'm talking about, there's no side effect, there's no, cost issue, there's nothing. And quicker you start, the better. And so that's a long-term prevention, in other words. Long-term. Does that answer your question? Okay. So prevention versus treatment. Treatment is a lot more difficult, prevention is a lot easier. Okay. So prevention, you don't have the symptom. Treatment, when you are doing the treatment, you have the symptoms. Okay. So anyway, so these are some of the TNF blockers that have been approved by the FDA. However, these are the side effects. So you can see that these are all the various autoimmune diseases, these are various cardiovascular diseases, these are the bone loss, these are the cancer, this is non-alcoholic liver diseases, these are metabolic diseases, pulmonary diseases. To all of these diseases, TNF has been linked to it. You name it, you can see it for yourself. Meaning just one molecule in our body has been linked to all these diseases. And these are all chronic diseases. And it is all published here that in our book, various diseases that have been closely linked to TNF and member of its superfamily. Just imagine. Just by controlling TNF, you can control all this. I mean, when we started, there was nothing known about it. It was zero. And we thought we were discovering anti-cancer agent. And as of today, there are over 100,000 papers published on it. Over 100,000. It is not trivial. So we started all this in 1980. And we thought we were curing cancer. And here we ended up with a molecule that is doing all of this. Now we are here, almost 2020, so almost 40 years. Things have changed quite a bit. So, as I mentioned, TNF blockers that have been approved by the FDA, but they all have black label warning. Black label warning means that they have a lot of side effects. Lot of side effects. So all these people who are taking it, I also mentioned all the diseases for which they are taking it. So doctors will tell you that it can cause lymphoma, it can cause infections because TNF is needed to kill all the bacteria, and now you are taking away TNF and it can cause infection. You can develop resistance, you can develop the Sézary syndrome, you can develop cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, you can develop T-cell non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and so forth. So it's not trivial. And doctors will tell you right up front that, and FDA declared it. Whereas I do not know that even though curcumin will block TNF, that if it has any side effect whatsoever. But if people are going the traditional way, that's what they're going to get. So you decide. Okay? So I think I'm going to just stop in about 5 minutes. But here I quickly want to tell you that curcumin is orally bioavailable. Orally. You don't have to inject. All the previous inhibitor that I showed you, you have to inject. Okay? But here is an orally bioavailable blocker of TNF and other pro-inflammatory biomarkers. Again, we have published the paper, we have provided all the science behind it. Okay? And it can block, here we showed even the pathways, TNF alpha and TNF beta. This is the TNF alpha is coming from the macrophages, TNF beta is coming from the lymphocytes, and here are the whole pathways that are outlined, and that is completely blocked. And whether you do that in the test tube, or you do that in the animals, or you do that in humans. So what more do we want? So people talk about bioavailability a problem. If bioavailability was problem, then none of this will happen. None of this will happen. So be that drug industry, be that anybody talking about bioavailability, the only reason they are talking about it, because they are looking for free curcumin. Number one. Number two is that curcumin cannot be patented. Curcumin was discovered 200 years ago. So nobody can patent curcumin. They tried. However, the way the patent law works, that if you combine curcumin with something else, combining A versus B, you put two together, you can patent it. So that's why there are hundreds of patents have been filed on curcumin, where they combine with black pepper, they combine with the nano technology, they combine with all kind of things just to patent it. And then say, okay, mine is better than yours. Where is the evidence? Because they are looking for free curcumin. And none of them doing what it is shown over here. And if they knew this, they will not say any of that, what you hear about it. There's absolutely no issue. Okay? So I'm going to stop right here and take more questions, because I don't want you to get tired of same thing. So we can continue in the afternoon. Questions? No more questions? Everybody saturated? So let us take a little break and then we will come back. Okay?